I apologize, I didn't realize until I was finished that the first 8 or so minutes of this video is blurry. It's not. I thought about deleting it, but it's not so blurry that you can't get decent content from it, but it's blurry enough that it's not clear, and maybe that's a good thing. You can't see me. I'm aware of it. I went ahead and I'm gonna leave it up. I'll just add this preamble to the video. Hopefully that will make things better, and I'll try and be more vigilant. I'm not shooting this with a cell phone, I'm shooting it with my camera, and I failed to do my due diligence in making sure it was focusing. So I apologize, we'll do better. Hello, I'm going to try and demonstrate how I go about making a sign. I'm going to be using my table saw, my scroll saw, my planer, and my miter saw, not necessarily in that order. Now, I'm not real good at this. I've only made one sign so far, and it looks kind of amateurish. I just finished it today, and I'm hoping that I can do better with this second one. We'll find out. I'm going to make a MIZZOU sign, and I think the first thing we need is a pine board. This is an 8" by 1" by 6" piece of pine board. First thing I'm going to do is measure out how long I want the sign to be, and then we'll worry about going through the other steps. Hang in there. First thing we're going to do is make our first cut. Again, this is a 1 by 8 by 6". It never really is. I think this is actually 7 1/4 by 3/4 of an inch. They're never what they advertise. This is I get a really tight workspace here because it's basically my garage. Let me get my eyes and ears on, and we'll make this first cut. Alright. It doesn't have to be exact. I'm going to make this sign 27 inches long. Plug it in. Because I've got such a tight space, I unplug everything after I'm finished using it as a safety measure, just for me. Try it again. Now, to me, what's more important than getting the measurements exact for the length or the width, however you want to look at it, is to make sure that I have 2 of the exact same size boards. Because what I'm going to do is paint the underneath and then glue one on top of the other. So you want to make sure that these are the same. Cut 2. Scrap pile. Trust me, you'll find a use for it. I have built more really cool things with scraps. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to put these 2 boards through my planer. And there's two reasons why. One is it flattens them out. It takes any curves or any imperfections out. And the planer makes it almost unnecessary to sand. It comes out really smooth. And third, this would be an exceptionally thick sign if I didn't. But if I plane them where I just take a quarter off of each board, it will make it more useful. So let's get to planing. Like I said, I have a really restricted space. I share, we have a double garage. I share half of it with my wife. On my side, I have a wood shop. I've got 2 scooters, a motorcycle, and a van. So let's get the planer ready. Eyes and ears, let's get to planing. Now when I glue these 2 boards together, I will essentially have a width of what the original board was. Because like I said, this is going to be a MIZZOU, a Missouri Tigers sign, so I'm going to paint the bottom board gloss black. Then I'm going to cut out the word MIZZOU and glue it here so that it shines through. Now to clean up. Alright, I'll try to make this brief. This sign is 2 boards that I'm going to glue together. The bottom board I painted black, and then I covered it in polyurethane so that it would have a gloss sheen. And I'm going to make another coating of polyurethane because it's not evenly spread. Some of the poly has been soaked into the wood, and I want a clear and concise gloss sheen over the whole sign. Next, I've gotten some graphics that I will affix to the sign simply because I don't have the skill to cut this stuff out and do it the way that it looks. So I took these off the internet, I printed them, and then I covered them in some, it's like shelving paper. You can find it, knock it off, self-laminating stuff. And I do that because when I cover this board with polyurethane, if this were just paper, it would bubble up and wrinkle because it's going to get wet. I covered it on both sides. Next, I printed out what I want to cut out. So I'm going to affix this to the wood. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lay down some painter's tape, because painter's tape is easy to peel off. Then I'm going to put probably, I can't find it, wood glue and maybe some stick glue. Guess I dropped it. Doesn't matter. Oh, here it is. To affix this to the painter's tape. And you want it to stay as tightly affixed as possible, because once you start scroll sawing and you get these letters cut out, this paper is going to want to come up. And if it does, you can't clearly see where you're cutting. Once this is affixed to the board, I will cover it in packing tape so that it will keep down on the board. So that's that. So let's see if we can get this done. Okay, I don't think you can see. I've got it attached to the wood, or to the tape. I put down painter's tape. I put down wood glue on the painter's tape. On the back of the MIZZOU, I used Elmer's stick glue, affixed it to that, and then I covered the whole thing in packing tape. Now I can, well, if it'll focus, now I can use my scroll saw and cut those letters out. Okay, if you look closely, I've drilled holes. You only need to drill one hole, but I might want to put my saw blade in a number of holes to maneuver the board around the saw. These are going to be called piercing cuts because I got to cut the letters out. So I put them in a vise and I drilled the holes. Next, let's see. Oh, there's my covered up planer. Next, I'm going to put them in my trusty DeWalt 788 scroll saw, and we'll show you how that works here in a second. Okay, the sign is loaded on my table. I have put the blade through one of the letters, and I've tilted the table 35 degrees to the left, and I've done that because when I cut these letters out, I want them to be almost at a three-dimensional angle, because I want them to shine through when this board is affixed to the one that's black. It'll be more clear when we're done, if it works. I've never done this before, so we'll figure it out. Hopefully you can see why I turned the table to a 35-degree angle. It carves those letters out so that when I paint them black and then paint the top of the board yellow, they will stand out more. Now, the O's I had to cut out. I'll have to glue back in. And also I broke a piece off of the M. But I got plenty of wood glue. And I got a Dremel. So hopefully I can sand these out to where they look okay. So now maybe you understand. This is the first time I ever did that. It's harder. I broke 3 blades, but it's done. Okay, here you see how this is all coming together. And the black board underneath, I've glued the O and my broken piece of my M. And once I get this together, you'll see how this is going to come together. Now, as you can see, the one board is laid atop the other, and these will really shine through. I was cutting those letters out at a 35-degree angle, and you can see I really fouled up here on the I and maybe the N, M, because I broke the piece off. But you know, as always, you do the best you can. Now it's come time to router. I like to use a trim router on these signs because they're easier to control and it's a really small area. For intricate work, I will use a full-size router because you have more control, but this little one is fine for this. It's coming right along. I'm going to router a nice little edge all the way around, and I'm going to paint that edge black. It'll look nice. But you need to secure the sign. Okay, the board is secure. Another reason I like to use these trim routers on these kinds of signs is because you can't go all the way around. If you're lucky, you can get 3 sides. I will probably only get 2. But with a full-size router, you just can't get the sides. And I like to change position as few times as possible. So let's begin this router business. That gives it a nice little edge, which I will paint black. Now I got to router the top. Because I use inexpensive router bits, my router bit for the Roman Oggi, I think this is a 1/4-inch Roman Oggi, it leaves really rough edges because the bit needs replaced. So I got to go over it with a sander. I'm going to do it real quick. As Larry the Cable Guy used to say, get her done. Now, I'm going to blow the sawdust out of here, tape it up, and paint the edge black. As the Marine Corps is so fond of saying, adapt, improvise, overcome. If you haven't got an air compressor, which I don't yet, this is a marvel. It's a tool used to blow up a mattress for a guest or for children wanting to have movie night and snacks in the living room and crash. However, it's beautiful for this kind of cleanup. Notice all the sawdust. Notice all the sawdust now. I gotta credit my boy. It was his idea. He's genius. A lot of people wouldn't tell you this when they make their videos. I had a real problem and I had to do this all over again. As you note, what I did was, these are two boards. And the bottom board I painted black. The top board I'm going to finish with yellow. Cut out the letters, slap it on top of the bottom board. That way this black comes out. Well, I was impatient, and instead of letting it sit in the clamps for 24 hours, I pulled the clamps off in 8 hours. So naturally the boards came apart. Well, on one side. I didn't want to redo it, so I just kind of opened up a little bit on the side that was already open and poured glue in there, clamped it, and left it clamped for 24 hours. Which held until I started finishing the board. I was just about ready to put polyurethane on here and be finished. The board split again. Really angry. I split it all apart. I took some 80 grit sandpaper, sanded every piece of glue off both sides of the board. Then once it was clean, slathered the thing with glue, let it sit for 48 hours. Hopefully these boards are clamped together. If they come apart, I'll have to put some screws in to try and secure them. At present, because I fouled up, I had to sand off most of the yellow. This is just the first coat of the black around the edges. But I had to sand off the yellow and then try to put some paint inside. When I'm ready, I will fill it with polyurethane so it gives it a nice sheen. But these projects don't always come out like you want. Sometimes you got issues. Hello. The finished product. It's not perfect. There are plenty of places where one could point out that this was definitely handmade and not made in a shop someplace. Well, I guess it was made in a shop. I need to use a piece of wood when I clamp down because the clamps left an imprint on the sign. I don't know how I can zoom in, but the polyurethane is beautiful. I made this for a friend of mine. I hope she'll like it. She's a big MIZZOU fan, and I think she will like it. But you never know. We had some ups and downs, but from Kansas City to St. Louis, we're all MIZZOU.